marketing executive in the 1950s, and I came into your office and I said, you know what? I really want you to invest in this thing called television. You'd laugh me out of your office and you'd tell me, you know what? I don't need your television. This thing called radio works really well for me. But what's interesting is that three brave marketers, Kraft, Unilever, and P&G, decided to jump into TV early because what they saw was that consumer consumption began to eclipse where organizational investment was in television. And as a result of that, they built competitive advantage that grew their business for the next 60 years. And I would argue that we are in the midst of the exact same thing. In fact, 23% of media is consumed on a mobile device, but less than 1% of spending actually goes to mobility right now. Which means that the world looks something like this, right? This is the boardroom. There's probably the CEO in the front that says, you know what? I think we need a mobile strategy. And then finally somebody looks up from their mobile device very distracted and says, I'm sorry, but did you say something? But what's interesting is this is not just an example of boardrooms. It's actually an example of society at large. We have become the most distracted society in human history. But what I love about humans is we'll never admit that we're wrong. We'll never tell you that we're distracted. We'll tell you, no, keep talking to me while I text because I'm doing something I like to call multitasking. Yes, I'm multitasking, but in reality, they're lying to you. There was a study that was done by the American Psychiatric Association. And what they did was they took two groups. They asked one group to use their mobile phone and multitask, and they asked the second group to smoke marijuana. And there was a 10-point drop in IQ of those who use mobile phones to multitask, which was twice as much as those that smoke marijuana. So the point here, people, is that you're better off being a pothead than pretending that you can multitask. But even in the, what? Yes, a few people in the front are. Sorry, I don't condone that. My point is, even in front of these facts, when I tell senior leaders, they still ask me the same question. They say, but Bonin, is mobile at scale? I said, good question. So I did a little bit of research. Turns out there are 7 billion people on Earth. 5.1 billion own a cell phone, but only 4.2 billion own a toothbrush. Which means there are a billion people on this planet that didn't get the text message of the importance of hygiene. That's what I'm just saying. It also means that if we believe toothbrushes are at scale, then clearly mobile phones are. What's more interesting is that the pace of growth that we've seen from these channels. So it took 2 years to reach 50 million consumers, but it took radio, 38 TV, you can read the numbers. What's interesting is this is just the iPhone, which is arguably probably the third most important OS as we move forward. It'll probably go Android, Microsoft. Any Microsoft people in the room? Raise your hand. Yeah, I just say that for you guys. It probably won't be Microsoft, but I just want to make you guys feel happy about yourself, right? No, I'm just kidding. It probably will be. Anyway, more phones are turned on every single day than babies are born. And so the pace at which we're seeing these platforms adopted is what's shocking. I love this slide. It says, honk if you love Jesus, text while driving if you want to meet him. Even our religious institutions understand the importance of mobility, but yet big organizations fail to react. How many people in here have ever felt that their phone was vibrating, but when they reached in their pocket to look at it, it wasn't? Raise your hand. Raise your hands high. That has to be everybody in the audience. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It happens to me all the time. I think it's happening right now. It's not just you. It's actually a disease, and it's called phantom vibration syndrome. And they say that people who experience this have a tactile hallucination that's very similar to meth addicts, drug addicts. There's other studies that show that using social media in your mobile phone is as addictive as cocaine, which means that Facebook and Twitter are just gateway drugs. There's some guy in a dark alley saying, oh, just send me 140 characters. Oh, they changed the limit. Never mind. Oh, just give me a status update. I'm dying for a status update. And while we're strung out on this thing called mobility, we have this man to blame. This man, Martin Cooper, nice white-haired gentleman, in the early 80s invented the mobile phone. But what's interesting is what he thought he was inventing was a device for us to transmit voice wirelessly. But what he didn't realize was that he was creating a world of connected devices that would transform humanity, society, and business at large. Bain did a study, and they showed that by 2020, every single consumer packaged good that's sold in a supermarket will be connected to the internet somehow. We sell over 6 billion packages a month, which means as I look at ourselves, we're the largest snack food company in the world with some of the most amazing brands, Milka, Cadbury, Oreo, Wheaton's, Triscuit, Ritz, I can go on and on. When I look at ourselves, it means that we might become one of the world's largest technology companies. But we don't look like the world's largest technology company. We don't run around on scooters like Google. We're not hip and cool like Snapchat. We do use Facebook at work now, so maybe that counts for something. But my point is how are we going to build models and train a next generation to unlock the potential power that these devices have put in every single person's hand? And that's what wakes me up every single day, because what I worry is that the institutions that are supposed to be graduating the next leaders are not preparing them for the generation that lies ahead. Less than 1% of course descriptions from the top 100 business schools even use the word mobile, emerging, or digital technology. So we're graduating MBAs into the world that aren't prepared for this next generation of leadership. And then they enter into the doors of organizations that look like mine, and we tell them, we want innovation, drive innovation. But in reality, what we want is incrementality. Don't take risk. Do what we've always done, just do it slightly better. Well, that doesn't transform organizations. That doesn't disrupt industries. So how do we begin to think about how we're going to transform our organizations for this next generation? So what I did was I began to go and look, and I said, what are the most disruptive organizations on the planet, and how do I understand what makes them move? So first of all, what's interesting is that these companies, and I guess Uber should be on here, and Airbnb, and you name it, so on and so forth, have been able to create value in shorter periods of time than organizations that have been on the planet for over 100 years. In fact, RadioShack is no longer here with us, right? So RadioShack actually died off about 6 months ago. What else is interesting is that it happens to have nothing to do with the amount of time that the organization was around. So here's a mailbox that was bought in less than 4 months for $100 million. I'll take that, $100 million in 4 months. I'll take that all day long. It also has nothing to do with the number of people. So here are 13 people who created Instagram who sold it for $1 billion, right? I'll take that too, by the way. It also has nothing to do with the industry specifically. We are now beginning to see all types of industries be transformed. The fourth industrial revolution, the transformation of the industrial complex by platforms like MakerBot that was sold for $403 million. It also has nothing to do with geography. In fact, there are over 100 places on this planet that are similar to Silicon Valley. Silicon Alley, Silicon Lane, Silicon Beach, Silicon River, Silicon Forest. First of all, with all this intelligence, come up with something more than just Silicon something, please. We owe it to ourselves. It also has nothing to do with age. What do all these kids have in common? They're all founders. In fact, the kid on your far left created an app called Bustin' Jeeber. You guys laugh. He gave a TED Talk. I'm here talking to you guys. I'm just saying that's kind of where my career is at. Anyway, it also has nothing to do with education. As you guys know, Peter Thiel is paying kids to not go to college. He's saying, don't go to college. I think I can create greater value out of your mind than even the educational system can. And he's right. When you look at folks like Zucks, who dropped out, when you look at folks like Sergey, when you look at folks like Karp from Tumblr, he didn't even finish high school, and he sold Tumblr for $1 billion. Now I know what you're saying. Look, Bonin, Marissa Mayer will buy anything. And you're probably right. Is Marissa here? Okay, we're actually friends. What's also interesting is that even rock stars believe that coders are today's rock stars, that the future of culture is actually being driven by this generation, by the creators that are in this room, and they're right. And when you begin to look at the magazines that represent cultural icons, you have things like Biz on Billboard, Rolling Stone, you have Campaign Magazine with Bonin Bough on the cover. You guys aren't familiar with that? Maybe you, that was such a, maybe you know this one a little bit better, right? Come on. You guys are a tough crowd. Wait. So I asked myself, what does it all mean?